WCBC's KCAL News, Los Angeles.
Now at 9, a big win for residents fed up with bad behavior. The neighborhood using a new law to keep it out. Also a big loss for a Little League as the Inland Empire team tries to fundraise and replace the items burned down in their snack bar. And UCLA reportedly tapping into special tactics like those used during the Capitol riot to find those responsible for attacking a Palestinian rights encampment on campus. An expert explains what that investigation could look like. Good evening, everyone. I'm Juan Fernandez. Pat Harvey has the night off tonight. This is KCAL News at 9, streaming on CBS News Los Angeles. Well, after loud guests, destructive parties, and even a shooting, one Long Beach neighborhood banded together to use a new law to ban short-term rentals. KCAL News reporter Leslie Maring is live in Long Beach with how they did it and why not everyone is happy about it. Leslie.
Yeah, Juan, we're standing in the College Estates neighborhood here in Long Beach, and they have now become the first to ban these unsupervised short-term rentals. Those are the rentals that do not have an owner staying on property as they are being rented out. But this couldn't have been possible without one neighbor who unfortunately had to deal with majority of the problems here.
The economic recovery.
Andy Oliver has spent the last year attending city council meetings after dealing with a next-door nuisance short-term rental.
We even found out that the homeowner was renting this place out by the hour through a site called Peer Space. So we had all kinds of strange activity going on in our very safe, peaceful, family-oriented neighborhood.
The breaking point for him, a shooting at the home that ended up on his property earlier this year.
The kid is chased across my lawn and shot right on my front porch. People have to live with this, knowing that your house, your safe place, has now been violated by this violent crime. In
2020, an ordinance permitted up to 1,000 unhosted or unsupervised short-term rentals across Long Beach. But a provision in the ordinance stated that any resident could circulate a petition within their census block to ban those rentals. And that's exactly what Oliver did.
By going to each and every street, passing out flyers, talking to people, it was a really good effort to come together and try to fix the problem.
More than half of the 800 homes in the College Estates neighborhood returned petitions to become the first to ban the unsupervised rentals.
They really, helped all make this happen as a really group effort.
But the petition hasn't been met without resistance. Jean Young rents out her home on Airbnb in another Long Beach neighborhood.
I rely on the income to help me survive here in California. Most of the people who stay here are referrals from my neighbors.
Long Beach community development leaders tell us they do have 8 other neighborhoods that have also filed petitions. And although Oliver came to Tuesday night city council meeting to talk about the good news, he also wants to make sure city leaders will follow through with their promises.
Will code enforcement step up to the plate and make sure they're really enforcing the law?
And we checked a couple of these rental sites, and it looks like there may just be 2 properties here in this area that are renting out as short-term rentals. We know the city tells us that they will be alerted in the following weeks about these restrictions, and they would either have to shut down after their registration expires, or they would have to turn into a hosted rental, which means the owner will have to be on site anytime they're renting out that property. Reporting live in Long Beach, Leslie Marin, KCAL News.
Leslie, thank you. Now to more violence on the Metro, where a confrontation ended with a deadly shooting. Metro officials say it started on the train, then spilled out into a station and onto the street in East Hollywood. KCAL News reporter Luz Delia Caballero has more on how the violence unfolded.
A Metro train heading toward the Vermont Sunset Station came to a sudden stop, a signal there was trouble.
Around 9 a.m., the B-line westbound train was just about to arrive at the Vermont Sunset platform when an individual on the train pulled the emergency brake.
LAPD Detective Megan Aguilar says the train stopped short of the station, but 2 armed security guards on the train were able to get it moving again.
When it arrived at the station, though, the same suspect pulled that emergency brake again.
Police say that man then got off the train and walked over to an area that was not public. The armed security guards followed, and this is where they say things got physical.
There was pepper spray that was used, and the suspect pulled out a knife and was able to stab one of the security guards in the lower body. At that time, there was also a shooting.
It's unclear if one or both security guards fired at the suspect. What officials say is clear is that suspect then walked upstairs, opened a hatch to emergency doors like these, got out, shortly collapsed, and died.
There is a knife next to that suspect.
Both security guards were treated at the hospital and are expected to be okay. Just last month, a woman was stabbed to death getting off a metro train in Universal City. Court records show the accused killer had pleaded no contest to battering a metro passenger in 2019.
Do you feel safe when you use the metro?
Absolutely not. Not even since it started.
Juan Rodriguez says while he has seen more security on the trains as of late, he is always on high alert.
You have to be on your toes. What I mean by that you're not riding comfortable, because you have to look out for everybody out.
The LAPD tells us they are having discussions with Metro to amplify security.
You should be able to ride public transportation and feel confident about it. Definitely feel safe.
In East Hollywood, Lustelia Caballero, KCAL News.
A group of parents is demanding that LA Unified bring back school police on its campuses. They held a rally this morning outside LAUSD Board of Education's meeting this morning. The group says they have collected 2,500 signatures of people in favor of bringing back school police. They say students face serious problems due to the lack of security.
We continue to demand transparency, to have the district release to us what the measurements are of the violence and drug use and other incidents in our schools. They continue to ignore our requests.
Well, during that meeting, the board got an annual update from the Safe School Task Force and the superintendent's report on a community-based safety plan. It included these items: provide more secure entry systems at schools that include buzzers, cameras, and gates. Allow safety committees at each school to determine whether they should have an officer on campus. Also, offer more viable options for weapons detection systems on campus, and look at adding surveillance cameras on the perimeter of schools to capture any incidents that happen off campus. Well, 1 week after violence broke out at UCLA's campus when a mob attacked a pro-Palestinian encampment, an investigation into the chaos has begun, and law enforcement is reportedly taking a page from the January 6 investigation in finding those involved. KCAL News reporter Jeff Nguyen live in Westwood with details. Jeff.
Juan, tonight there is a law enforcement presence on campus where the encampment used to be, and over the past week, UCLA has been under fire for not taking action sooner. Now we are learning an investigation is in full swing to track down the people responsible for the violence. Tuesday night, security patrolled UCLA's Royce Quad, where a week earlier, pieces of wood and chemicals flew through the air during a violent confrontation that went on for hours with no police. Images like these are now part of a massive investigation into what Chancellor Gene Block called a group of instigators that attacked the pro-Palestinian encampment. The LA Times reports some of the techniques law enforcement used to charge more than 1,300 people for storming the U.S. Capitol on January 6th is now being used at UCLA. Dr. Peter Hannock teaches criminology at Cal Poly Pomona. He says news footage and social media will provide starting points.
They would use clothing, they would use insignia, patches, decals.
He says cell phone data will also help to build cases.
You can also get warrants to get information from cell service providers and looking at who's accessing cellular networks.
Former federal prosecutor Jeff Chemerinsky says cell phone data will be vital.
It could, of course, be text messages. It could be messages through Instagram or Facebook or other social media platforms to piece together what people were talking about at the time to really establish intent, motive, and actions.
UCLA says the FBI will be part of the investigation.
The FBI routinely works really closely with local law enforcement in a very sort of symbiotic relationship.
UCLA changed its security leadership following the violence and the clearing of the pro-Palestinian encampment in which more than 200 people were arrested.
Having been associated with this kind of violence, I think that there's going to be a lot of people who have very strong interests in getting to the bottom of it to try to figure out what happened.
And the chancellor is asking anyone who experienced violence firsthand to report it as soon as possible. He says that accountability and campus safety are both critical. We are live at UCLA. Jeff Nguyen, KCAL News.
And they sure are, Jeff. Thank you. Meanwhile, at USC, preparations are in full swing for graduation ceremonies tomorrow. USC previously canceled the main stage commencement ceremony. The smaller graduation ceremonies start tomorrow and run through Saturday. CIA Director William Burns will represent the U.S. in the next round of Israel-Hamas negotiations in Egypt. Israel rejected the latest ceasefire proposal after Hamas said it doesn't have enough living hostages to meet Israel's demand. As CBS's Ramy Inocencio reports, Israel is now moving forward with its controversial military operation in the city of Rafah.
Flattening this I Love Gaza welcome sign, Israeli tanks took control of the Palestinian side of the Rafah crossing. Along with Kerem Shalom to the east, two of Gaza's most important corridors for aid are now shut. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed Hamas's proposal is very far from Israel's core demands. But tonight, more pressure from hostage families for a deal.
They're chanting the names of every single hostage, followed by now, now, now. The fear here is that if the government doesn't approve of ceasefire soon, then an invasion will follow.
My dear son, as your mother, I will never give up on you. I will do whatever I can to bring you back home.
Protest leader Einav Zangaukar says her 24-year-old son, Matan, is still a hostage because Netanyahu is opposed to a permanent ceasefire.
My prime minister is not thinking about the Israeli citizens. He's thinking only about his political survival.
Many in Israel believe there should be no deal with Hamas, like far-right ultra-nationalist politician Yitzhak Kreuzer, part of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's fragile coalition. He says instead of sending negotiators to Cairo for talks, the military should come down on Gaza to bring hostages home.
And as ceasefire talks carry on in Cairo, the Pentagon says it has finished construction of that floating pier to boost aid deliveries to Gaza. Weather permitting, it'll be connected to the Gaza shore tomorrow. Ramy Inocencio, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
Still ahead here at 9, inmates sentenced to death now serving their time at Chino Prison. We have new reaction tonight from local leaders and those who live nearby. And a unique way to tackle homelessness, an encampment at a local city hall is turning heads for its approach to the housing crisis.
And Juan, we are watching windy conditions for now and warmer temperatures on the way. I'll have your full forecast next.